Welcome to the Jerome McClain Show. I'm your host, Jerome McClain, and let's get into our episode.
Intelligentsia, the endem of sarcasm, the nutty professor to your whack-ass marmalade. It's T-Bone from T-Bone and Chick Brew in the Morning. Now available in podcast format. Simply search for the T-Bone and Chick Brew podcast, available wherever fine podcasts are sold.
We begin with Dr. Cornel West. He is a professor of religion as well as the director of Afro-American Studies at Princeton. He's also known as a brilliant social critic with insights into topics as diverse as racism and popular culture. His latest book, which is being published on the anniversary of the LA riots, is called Race Matters, and I'm very pleased to have him back. Welcome.
Oh, it's good to be here.
Good to see you. Tell me, these are a series of essays that you have written, but if there is an essence here about race in America today, what is it?
I think in many ways it's reflected on this very day, which is the celebration of the birthday of the great Billie Holiday. She would have been 78 years old. And I think in the life and in the art of Billie Holiday, we see the triumph of the human spirit as it struggles against adversity. And in many ways, that's a paradigm of the black condition in America since we first arrived. A very tragic but dignified struggle against adversity, struggle against overwhelming circumstances, and yet still able to hone out some stone of hope. And that's what that book is about. It's about
What's
hope.
the hope?
Well, the hope is primarily based on the small victories. The small victories in terms of the black love, black care, black joy that serves as a basis of loving others and allowing the possibilities of persons coming together to change and transform prevailing circumstances.
When you look at the Rodney, taking you to timely events, this second trial of Rodney King, this trial in which the prosecution has evidently done a better job than it did in the first time. Do you fear the consequences because no one knows what a jury's going to do this time?
Well, it's hard to say, though, Charlie, though I must say that the distinction between what some persons would call a more visible riot, rebellion, or upheaval, as opposed to the quiet riot, which is occurring this very moment in South Central, occurring this very moment in Harlem here in New York. It's occurring this very moment in South Central and East LA. It's occurring in Appalachia. That is to say, the hurt, the misery, the suffering. And oftentimes we act as if that is not already in place, and it is. The tears are actually already flowing, as it were. So that the distinction between a quiet riot, which is occurring at this very moment, and a more visible rebellion or riot or upheaval is, for me, an important distinction, but it's a distinction that ought not to lead us to overlook the degree to which the conditions are still the same.
Why do you think that white America was startled by the rage in L.A.?
I think partly because we've lived through a kind of ice age under Reagan and Bush. And what I mean by that is it has rendered so much of black and brown, but especially black social misery invisible. And by rendering that social misery invisible, persons are surprised as they have fallen asleep in their own kind of complacency. And to see the rage and fury and the anger articulated was a wake-up call to the degree to which persons had in fact slumbered and fallen into a complacency. And began to think that maybe we had reached a kind of rough justice in this country, and we know that's certainly not the case.
You mentioned the two previous Republican presidents. Do you think that this Democrat from Arkansas has done something in terms of both his campaign and his early presidency to overcome some of the cynicism?
I think he certainly attempted to create a new atmosphere, and it's very difficult to do. I mean, he can't get a job bill through Congress because the Republican placating. It's
right.
exactly. So that I think he's attempted to create a new atmosphere, but there's some very strong and deep conservative residues there, not just in the Congress.
In Clinton, or
he's
in
no,
Congress.
he's fighting against it.
Yeah, but at the same time, Randall Robinson was here last night, and I suspect a man that you respect clearly for what he's done for Nelson Mandela and head of the executive director of Trans-Africa. And he said that the policies of this country and this president with respect to Haitian refugees and with respect to democracy in Africa and with respect to the recognition of government in Angola, racist.
Well, it's a continuation of the Bush administration, and I think that certainly one of the major Achilles' heel of the Clinton administration has been precisely the hypocrisy regarding the issue of the Haitians. There's no doubt about that. Certainly, I would say in regard to policy in regard to African countries as a whole, there's still been a downfall and a shortcoming in this regard. So I would want to share Randall Robinson's concern, but at the same time, I would argue that on domestic issues, he's trying to turn the country around.
Mainly by changing the economic.
Well, and most importantly, mainly by talking about the revitalization of the public sphere.
Of the public sphere.
The public sphere.
In terms of a role of government and a positive and
public health care, public provision.
A role of government to influence how we treat and how we respond to those who suffer the most.
That's right. That's right. And at this point, it's been primarily a rhetoric with some policies in place, but he's up against a lot, and it takes a while to turn a country around. And then at the same time, we still have the cultural decay. We still have the misery and the suffering that I alluded to earlier.
Do you find anything that resonates with you? I know you from many. I think you've probably been on this broadcast as much as any other single individual since I've been on the air. Do you think, and I know you because for you are a proud member of, consider yourself and characterize yourself as a social democrat or labels are hard or democratic socialist.
That's right.
Based on the European model, I guess, that we would find in France and in other places.
Well, one concerned about redistribution of wealth.
Okay.
That's right.
Having said that, does anything that African-American conservatives say resonate with you at all? Those who want to see Black America do well by grabbing a piece of the American dream and making capitalism work for them? Does anything there that you can say?
See, Black conservatives, they get a lot of mileage out of a notion that all Black freedom fighters have affirmed, which is the notion of Black self-help, Black self-development. Right. And no one would be against Black self-help.
Malcolm X was for that, wasn't he? Malcolm X was much more of that than he was.
Muhammad, right down the line.
But Malcolm specifically, because he's such a hero to so many African Americans, clearly was articulating something like that. I mean, you could even argue, I guess some might, that he was a forerunner of, notwithstanding some of the elements of it.
Right, but what I think Brother Malcolm understood and the Black conservatives do not is that you cannot overlook the degree to which white supremacy shapes and molds the circumstances and conditions under which Black self-help and Black self-development can take place. And I would add male supremacy, I would add economic inequality. Right. But certainly when it comes to emphasizing Black self-help, and conservatives often think they have a monopoly on such a notion, and they're wrong.
What's your criticism of liberals in America and in their analysis of race in America?
Well, I think the problem often is that liberals at times tend to be spineless milquetoast, which is to say that they're not
paternalistic.
The degree to which they act on their convictions is often quite weak, and that they refuse to acknowledge the degree to which America remains so deeply shaped by corporate elites and banking elites in this country. The liberals think that somehow the distribution of wealth in place can provide the background conditions for inclusion of others, so that the pie would get bigger, so that economic growth by means of corporate priority can remain in place. And I think the liberals are at times allies. At times they're unreliable allies. So I don't want to just whitewash them, as it were. But you've got to proceed quite cautiously with liberals.
Boy, then I'd like to hear you say that. That brings me to a question I've asked before, and I don't want to go too far down this road, but just raise this point. You seem to be out of sync with where the world is. The world seems to me, socialism is not doing well. Look at France recently, for example, in terms of one national election. Secondly, even in the former communist countries, everybody is saying, give us a piece of that old-time market economy.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Has anybody ever told you you were over-opinionated? How about this one? You can talk about everything you like, but don't talk about religion. Don't talk about faith. Don't talk about politics. My name is Jerome McClain, host of Jerome McClain Show, and I want to introduce you to a show called Over-Opinionated with my friend from Southwest Virginia, Josh Scott. Josh has always been told he has been over-opinionated. He always tried to hold back these opinions, but he tried to back them up when he had to say something with facts and logic. Since he's grown up in many ways, he had to change a lot of his views and his opinions, as a lot of people should. He's not a millionaire from Fox News or CNN. He's just a hard-working, blue-collar type of guy. Give Josh Scott a shot at Over-Opinionated with Josh Scott. You can find him on patreon.com/overopinionated at 679. You can also check him out on Twitter at NRV_guy79. Over-Opinionated with Josh Scott. Why, he is this soft-spoken guy telling you the truth. We talk about a lot of serious topics on this show. One very serious topic is women's health. One company that stood out to me was vslay.com, because the owner is very transparent about her own struggles in the women's health department and has great customer service, great deals, and frequent sales. You can check her out, her great customer service, products about women's health, and frequent sales at www.vslay.com. That is www.vslay.com.
Right?
Oh, yes. Keep in mind that Democratic Socialists have always been major critics of any kind of communist regime.
Right. No, communism is not the issue. The issue is an unfettered market economy.
Well, yes, but we know the market's not unfettered.
Okay.
Right. We know the corporate America will get subsidies and free equipment, free technology, and so forth. So if we're going to talk about public provisions for certain spheres of our society, certainly we have to talk about the cozy relationships between various corporate elites and the political elites.
Ross Perot there.
Well, Ross has a point, though he gives it a more conservative populist twist. Yeah. But he certainly has a point in terms of the lobbyists who are hired primarily by corporations to push through policies that are efficacious for their own interest. But let me say this, though, Charlie, that you are absolutely right in terms of mine not being in step with most of the world.
Right.
Because when I look at Bosnia, when I look at India, when I look at South Africa, when I look at Haiti, when I look at Chile, I see human suffering that is changeable and alterable.
Well, then let's take that.
And I think that the fight against such injustice is an honorable one and a self-critical and humble.
Okay, but you also could mention Somalia, where there is clearly an effort to make a difference there.
Yes, I can mention my own Ethiopia.
Yeah.
You see, I like these cufflinks.
From Ethiopia.
My wife just brought them. Yes.
Are you pessimistic about the future?
No.
You're optimistic?
No.
Where are you?
I'm full of hope.
Full of hope, okay.
And
faith. And faith.
Yeah. In spite of sensibility, as it were. The evidence points to sliding down a slippery slope of chaos, anarchy.
What's the politics of conversion?
The politics of conversion is an attempt to rechannel powers and energies of ordinary people so that they believe they can make a difference, and if they come together, they can expand the scope of democracy.
And what brings them together?
What will bring them together will be, 1, new leadership, 2, new belief in themselves, and 3, new historical conjunctures, new moments that provide new possibilities which are unpredictable, which as we turn around the corner, when we turn around the corner, we see things that we could not have imagined, you see.
Like?
It was hard to say. It's like Abraham Joshua Heschel's notion of radical amazement. And I suggest in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to be radically amazed at the degree to which people who keep track of the least of these, keep track of those persons who are suffering, the new possibilities to provide some way of alleviating that suffering, you see. But that's hope. That's not optimism. I'm not an optimist at all. In fact, I have little respect for naive optimism. The world's too tragic to be a naive optimist.
What does your deep religious belief say to you when you look at what's going on in Bosnia and you see that kind of cruelty and inhumanity and what some are characterizing as genocide and crimes against humanity? And it's not just happening there. There are other places in the world it's taking place.
I see it in South Central Los Angeles and Harlem as well.
And that's...
Well, as you know, this is the Easter season. I speak as a Christian. I look at the world through the eyes of the cross, and I see the blood that flows. I see the death with no dignity. I see the soldiers making fun of the person who died. I see the loss of hope. I see the darkness twice on that Good Friday. And yet, even given that Saturday with Easter possibilities seemingly foreclosed and held at arm's length, and yet the small victories. Those who get up every morning, love their children, project a future. Those who organize, local activists who are struggling against the grain, the Davids against the Goliaths.
But let me stop you there in terms of your Christian soul. Where do you should the United States, in some call of justice and morality and being on the side of all that is good, say to the world, we will not stand by and allow this?
In Bosnia?
Yes.
Yes, should have done it a year ago.
With American military leading the way.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And make the argument, though, when people say it's a quagmire, it'll suck you in and never let you go and will create division in this country like we've never seen before if American men and women are dying there in a way that our leaders cannot clearly articulate the national interest, albeit how incredibly obscene and vicious and undescribable the crimes.
Yes, but see, I would argue that one does not fight Hitler based on national interest. You don't fight apartheid based on national interest.
You fight it on the basis of what?
You fight it on the basis of, one, it being wrong, two, of it destabilizing the region, leading toward wider conflict, and three, allowing brutes and tyrants to get away with such gross dehumanization, such ugly behavior toward others on all three levels. And I think if we had done this about 12 months ago, we could have done it simply with either airstrikes and making symbolic gestures.
We're not talking about air,
Now, at this point, of course, we're talking about long-term investment. We're talking about American soldiers and so forth. So you're absolutely right.
And some say it'll take 200,000 or 300,000.
Some say even 500,000. Yeah, some say 500,000.
Doesn't sound like Vietnam to you.
No, I don't think the analogy holds there. But I mean, I recognize the strength of the plausible arguments on the other side. I think we need to have a public conversation about this. We need a debate about this. But certainly,
do you think we're having that public conversation?
No, we haven't had a serious public conversation.
And who's to follow? It seems to me that there's one person that commands the debate, you know. And politics rules, though, because you may not want to have that debate right now because there are other items on the agenda. And each day, more people die because there are other agendas to pursue, whether they're, not, and you don't want to cloud the agendas.
Right.
You don't want to push too many things on the table.
That's what has happened in the Clinton administration. Very much so. Very much so.
Tell me about black nihilism and what it is.
It is the black hopelessness and meaninglessness, and most importantly, lovelessness that too many black people, and especially black children, are undergoing this very moment. The shattering of family and neighborhood, the proliferation of combat zones and existential wastelands that too many black folk are up against. Almost 50% of black children live in poverty in this country. What kind of future are we talking about? You see? And the most frightening thing, I think, is that denialism leads toward a certain kind of cold-heartedness and mean-spiritedness. If, in fact, no one feels that my life is worth any value, why should I value the life of others? And it spills over in the forms of social chaos that I think sit at the very center of the chocolate cities in this society. As the
What's a chocolate city?
A chocolate city is a black and brown city. It's a New York, it's a Chicago, it's a Detroit, it's a Washington city disproportionately black and brown. Vanilla suburb, those suburbs that are disproportionately white, those work in the city during the day and go back to the vanilla suburbs at night.
Should Jesse Jackson be elected head of the NAACP?
My own view is no. I have great respect for Jesse Jackson. I think he's one of the towering figures of the Black freedom movement in the 20th century. I think NAACP would actually stranglehold the brother. I think he has too much to offer. NAACP itself is in need of tremendous regeneration, new vision, new energy. He could do that, but I think that Jesse Jackson simply is someone who could be much more useful outside of the NAACP apparatus. I'd like to see him senator from the new state called Washington, D.C. That's why I'd like to see it.
I suspect that's where he'd like to be either.
Brother Jesse, yeah.
Finally, when you look at you, let me listen to this. This is from Senator Bill Bradley talking about this book. The book is Race Matters by Cornel West, professor. Few Americans speak about race with Cornel West's clarity, humanity, intellectual rigor. His presence on the scene, plus the knowledge that his best years lie ahead of him, should give hope to all of us who believe that America's racial diversity is our strength. Marion Wright Edelman says Cornel West is one of the most original, brilliant, prophetic, and healing voices in America today. We ignore his truth in Race Matters at our personal and national peril. And it goes on with other people, including Henry Gates at Harvard and Janetta Cole at Spelman College. Have you paid any price for all the attention that you have received? Any price? Has there been a toll for that?
Oh, sure. Being misunderstood, and this is what one would expect, because when you're saying so many different kinds of things, you're often misunderstood, and you're often cast with the mainstream when you're much more critical of the mainstream, and you're cast with militants when you're much more open to compromise. I have a strongly militant pole to my own position. I also have a compromising pole given my personality. So that I think probably more than anything else, it's a matter of being misunderstood, and that misunderstanding leads to and degenerates to a whole host of other things. But I'm very conscious of becoming too visible, because I want to keep the focus on the issues, on the social misery and the suffering. You see what I mean? And I'm quite serious about that. I think that televisual culture can become a kind of addiction. It can become almost a narcotic. And I do believe
the hot lights.
The hot lights, and yes. And I think...
And all the praise in the papers.
Publicity and power are inherently corrupting. And therefore one must tremendously struggle against it and be spiritually prepared such that you don't fall into the traps of complacency and acceptance. And that's a perennial battle for a freedom fighter, it seems to me. And it's a challenge for someone like myself.
Great to have you here.
Good to see you again. Congratulations on you going national.
Thank you.
I'm so glad.
Cornel West, Race Matters is his book, and it is provocative and insightful ideas about where America is going with, as he says, some respect for the power of love. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Catherine McKinnon is here, and Mary Steenburgen. See you after this break.
Goes back long before Jewish Zionism. In England, particularly Christian state support Israel. Well, there's a history. Why does the United States support Israel? Well, there's a history. and a very interesting one. It actually goes back a long time. One thing to remember is that Christian Zionism is a very powerful force, which goes back long before Jewish Zionism. In England, particularly, Christian Zionism was a powerful force among British elites. It's part of the motivation for the Balfour Declaration and for Britain's support for Jewish colonization of Israel. Remember, the Bible said, and that's a big part of British elite culture. Same in the United States. Woodrow Wilson was a devout Christian who read the Bible every day. So did Harry Truman. In the Roosevelt administration, one of the leading officials, Harold Ickes, once described the return of the Jews to Palestine as the greatest event in history. It's realizing the lesson of the Bible. These are deeply religious countries in which the biblical commands, so-called, are taken quite literally. Also, this is just part of colonization. This is the last phase of European colonization. And notice that the countries that are most strongly in support of Israel are not just the United States. It's the United States, Australia, and Canada, the offshoots of England, Anglosphere sometimes called, unusual forms of imperialism. These are settler colonial societies, societies in which not like India, not like the British in India, say, societies, South Africa was a little like this, or Algeria under the French, settler colonial societies in which the settlers came in, essentially eliminated the native population, also driven by religious principles, very religious groups driven by Christian Zionism. Those are major cultural factors. There are also significant geostrategic factors. You go back to 1948, there was actually a split between the State Department and the Pentagon in the United States over how to react to the new state of Israel. The State Department was not committed strongly to Israeli conquests, the establishment of the state, and was concerned about the refugees. It wanted an implementation of the refugee problem. The Pentagon, on the other hand, was very impressed with Israel's military potential. The Israeli military successes, if you look back at the internal record and declassified, the Joint Chiefs of Staff described Israel as the second largest military force in the region after Turkey and a potential base for U.S. power in the region. That continued. Can't run through the whole record, but in 1958, when there was a serious crisis in the region, Israel was the only state that strongly cooperated with Britain and the United States, and it won plenty of support from the governments and the military for that reason. 1967 is when the current relations with Israel were pretty much established. Israel performed a major service to the United States by destroying a secular Arab nationalism, a major enemy of the United States, and supporting radical Islam, which the U.S. supported. And it continues right until the present. Right now, we saw an example of that just during the latest Gaza attack. You recall that at one point, Israel began to run out of munitions during the assault, despite the fact that it's armed to the teeth. The United States provided Israel with additional munitions through the Pentagon. And notice where they were taken from. These were U.S. munitions pre-positioned in Israel for eventual use by U.S. forces. One of many signs of how Israel is regarded as essentially a military offshoot of the United States. Very close intelligence relations that go way back, many other connections. And the media tend to take up, to support the policy of the government with very few, kind of little questioning around the edges, but basically accept the policy. So, for example, take another issue. Take the U.S. invasion of Iraq. You cannot find the phrase U.S. invasion of Iraq in the U.S. media, though it was obviously an invasion, a blatant act of aggression, a textbook case of that's Nuremberg trials called the supreme international crime, cannot be mentioned. President Obama is praised as an opponent of the invasion. And what did he say? He said it's a mistake. It's a strategic blunder. We're not going to get away with it. Now, that's the kind of opposition that you heard from the German general staff during Hitler's invasion of Russia. It's a blunder. Shouldn't do it. Should knock off England first. Now, that's regarded as opposition. Same in Vietnam. There's now a commemoration underway, big commemoration of U.S. sacrifices in Vietnam. Try to find the phrase U.S. invasion of South Vietnam there or anywhere in the past years since 1961 when it took place. Non-existent, maybe on Democracy Now, what I write, but way out at the fringe. And this is not unique to the United States. Take, say, Britain. Right now there's interesting debates in the British literary journals, like the Times Literary Supplement, as to whether Britain should finally begin to recognize the genocidal, the word that's used, genocidal character of British colonization hundreds of years ago. Should Britain begin to face it? You can ask that question in many places. The tendency of the intellectual community to go along like a herd in support of state power, private power, is just overwhelming. Intellectuals like to think of themselves as dissident, critical, courageous, standing up against power. Absolutely untrue. You look at the historical record, that's a small fringe, and they're usually punished. The mainstream tends to be what was once called a herd of independent minds, marching in support of state power. Nothing new here. Unfortunate, you have to fight against it, not new.
Christopher Hitchens, let's go to Cambridge, Maryland. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you very much. Mr. Hitchens, I have 3 direct questions, short questions for you, please. Do you feel that Israel has a right to exist within secure borders? Do you feel that the United States should intervene should Iran or Russia try to close the Straits of Hormuz? And would you seek relief from a 24-hour shoot-on-site curfew from any quarter in which relief might be found? Thank you.
All right, thanks for the call.
Very good questions, and I think I know what you're trying to pin me down on. On the first, yes, I do, but I think the securely recognized borders should not allow for Israeli colonization or occupation of the territory of its neighbors, which is what it's doing now. The right to exist argument has been used now to the point where what it's going to mean is that the Israel you're talking about will include the annexed and illegally occupied West Bank. So the right to exist argument is going to rebound on those who use it unclearly and who don't say what they mean by Israel. It's very interesting, the Israeli government has never said where it thinks the borders of Israel really ought to be and what it would settle for. I think it would be an immense help if Israel's going to insist on the right to exist, if it tells us where it thinks Israel's boundaries should be. Every other country does do that.
I'd better give you the straight answer. I think Zionism, the idea of building a state of Jewish farmers on Arab land in the Middle East, is a stupid idea to begin with. I've always thought so. My mother wanted to go and be a Zionist at one point. I tried to talk her out of it. It's been a thing in my family. I think it's a bad idea. I think it's a messianic idea. I think it's a superstitious idea. And I think
so the idea of Israel's right to exist is
now that
has no play with you.
Many states are founded on injustices or foolishness and bad ideas.
And boundaries are drawn by all kinds of political.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that anyone can just come and evict or destroy them. And I'm not saying that. But I think I'd have to say, so as not to seem shady, I've always thought it's a silly, messianic, superstitious nationalist idea, and it's a waste of Judaism. And it guaranteed a quarrel with the Arabs because it meant we're going to take away from you what's most precious, your land, by trying to make Jews into peasants. Already a silly idea. That's not the way to rescue Central European Jewry, make them into farmers in Palestine. Guaranteed an injustice to the Arabs, which now anyone can see, and is now entering its third, fourth generation. Fourth generation of Palestinians brought up either in exile or dispossession or under occupation and humiliation. And now we know that something has to be done to address what is part of the original, let's not call it original sin, original misconception of the thing. So I've been writing in favor of the Palestinian homeland all my life, and I'm no more, no less in favor of it than I was because of recent events.
And now the Bush administration.
It's a matter of principle.
And now the Bush administration in favor of it.
Well, yes, they were edging towards it. It's a pity about the timing because they were edging towards it before. I don't want it to look as if they did it as a concession. But it should be a matter of principle. If Jews born in Brooklyn have a right to a state in Palestine, then Palestinians born in Jerusalem have a right to a state in Palestine. Anyone who doesn't agree with that principle, I think, is suspect.
I think most people do.
They do, but why in that case do we have the one and not the other? After all, it's America that pays for all this and arms the Israelis and is very much involved in it. If it's a matter of principle, then we should have witnessed to it a bit more forcibly than we did.
On the point of purchase, I'd like to take up on a single word, very important. You wouldn't say, would you, that the United States has no purchase on the government of Israel?
No.
No. I mean, in other words, if the Israelis are going to continue to build settlements in an identifiable, just a single suburb of Jerusalem, where most of the Arab population can produce documents proving they've owned their homes since before the British Mandate. If American policy can't get them to stop building in that one identifiable suburb of Jerusalem, then there's no such thing as leverage or purchase. And Obama went to all the trouble to point out that this is a terrible thing. He should have said more than he did, in my view, that it's theft as well as an obstacle to negotiations, and then walked away from that. So that a punk government like that of Netanyahu, under the influence of a ratbag religious party, the Shas party, crackpot Orthodox party that happens to run the Ministry of Housing, is allowed to humiliate the United States, not just in the person of its vice president, who was there at the time, but its president and its Congress and its voters. And immediately the president backpedals, and now he's being attacked by some leading American Jewish organizations as being, in principle, anti-Israel. So he's had a fight with one of the Democratic Party's most important voting blocs. He's done nothing for the Palestinians, and he's made himself look like a jerk. This is not impressive.
But when was American policy in the Middle East impressive?
Well, actually, I'll give you an example. When George Bush Sr. Said to the Israelis, if you go on like this, I will ask Congress to suspend your loan guarantees, I thought that was extremely impressive. And so did everyone else in the Middle East, and it led to the nearest we've ever had to a proper peace conference. That was in Madrid. Bill Clinton chose to run that year from the right against Bush, saying that he thought Bush was being soft on Cuba, just like Kennedy. Thought Eisenhower and Nixon were being soft on communism in Cuba, and also from the right on Israel, saying if he was president, the Israelis would not be subjected to this kind of pressure. So the last time that there was an impressive American policy, it was a Republican administration, and it was undone by the hero of every liberal in this room.
Good morning. Great. I like your type of argument. You basically have intellectual discussion instead of a screaming argument. I'm a libertarian. I'm basically on the opposite side of the spectrum as you. But I wonder if you could clarify a couple things for me. I believe Palestine was the entire area covering Israel and Jordan. I wonder if you could tell me at what point the Palestinians went to Jordan, and I realized they were kicked out when they blew up some passenger jets or something. And are you familiar with that?
Yes, I think more than you are, by the sound of it. I'm not sure, well, go ahead.
Basically revolved around the Palestinians that were from Israel. I don't understand there's 22 Arab states, why they have to take over Israel.
Well, there are 49 American states. If someone told you couldn't, apart from the one you're sitting in, if someone told you, actually, we would rather have your bit of Los Angeles for ourselves, from now on, this will only be, you can only be a landholder or a householder here if you profess the, let's say, Muslim or Buddhist faith. Otherwise, get out. This bit's ours. You're happy to go to Colorado on that basis? I don't think so, and I think if you think about it, you wouldn't insult anyone else by treating them, their society or their country as disposable as that. The Palestinians do not feel that God gave the land to someone else and they therefore have to be flung out. And I completely agree with them. They've every right to resist that ridiculous proposal.
Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Go ahead, please.
Good morning. A question for Mr. Hitchens, please.
You're on.
Ask away.
Do you believe it's healthy for the United States to be so much influenced by Israel? We are a large country. They are very small, but they have much influence in the media and especially in politics.
Thanks.
Well, believe me, I know, I believe I understand the question, and there are various tones of voice in which it can be asked, including a tone of voice that I don't like, that suggests that there's a sort of covert Jewish hand that directs US policy, which is not true, and very often clusters with other forms of unpleasantness. I do think that the United States gives far too great a proportion of its military aid budget to Israel and in return asks for insufficient Israeli responsibility. The Israelis are the custodians of the West Bank by an act of war. Their occupation of it is not recognized as legal. I've already said what I think should happen about that. There should be a West Bank state. The United States could make that difference. You could say to the Israelis, we will defend the existence of a Jewish community or a Jewish state in Palestine. We will not underwrite it becoming an expansionist and colonial state. If you want to do that, you pay the difference yourself. That alone would have probably solved the problem by now. And I do wish, yes, if you want to put it like that, that there was more cogent discussion along those lines in both the media and in Congress. And as for the Israelis, everybody knows that, because I mustn't seem to duck that question, because I know how toxic it is, everybody knows that if you want to occupy people against their will, if you want to be the governor of another people who haven't chosen you, you will end up visiting terrible cruelty on them. There certainly cannot be a humane occupation. The majority of Jewish people in the diaspora and in Israel have for a long time favored a two-state solution to this problem. It's a national question. It's a land question. This is also the expressed view of the United States Congress, of American Jewry, of the United Nations, of the European Union, and of the Palestine Liberation Organization. It's what the majority of people involved in this view want. Why can't they get what we all want? Why is it made impossible? Because in both communities, the veto is held by the party of God. In the first case, by the Messianic settlers, who think that by establishing fait accompli by violence and stealing other people's land in the name of the Jewish people and in the name of God, they can help to bring on the Messiah. If only, they say, we get all the Arabs out of this area and all the Jews gathered, then the Messiah would come, finally, after such a long, sweaty wait.
ואנחנו הבנים של עם ישראל, אנחנו הבנים של יעקב. ברצונו הקדוש ברוך הוא נתן לנו, שיבוא משיח בן דוד, אתם כולכם, תצלם רגע את כולם, אתם כולכם, אתם תהיו עבדים שלנו אם תהיו ראויים, אם תתנהגו יפה. אתה רואה את הציצית הזאת? על כל ציצית אחת כזאת אתם תתפסו, ואתם יודעים שזה האמת. אז עכשיו, כדי שיהיה הכל בשלווה, ואנחנו רוצים שיהיה בשלווה, חצי אני גם רוצה לזרוע, וחצי אתם תזרעו, בסדר? ואתם, אם אנחנו נרצה, אתם תהיו העבדים שלנו, רק אם אנחנו נרצה. עכשיו, כרגע, אנחנו לא רוצים לעשות בעיות, אנחנו אומרים, אתם רוצים לחם, אנחנו רוצים לחם, אזרח חצי,
בסדר, אנחנו ניתן לכם לחם, אבל זה האדמה שלנו, לא ניתן לך.
מודק, אמרנו שיש רוב ויש שתי מדינות, מדינה ב-77, תלך תעשה לחם במדינה שלך.
פה זה המדינה שלי?
לא, זה לא נכון.
פה זה ארץ ישראל.
לא נכון.
פה זה ארץ שלי.
זה של אבא שלי, האדמה הזאת של אבא שלי.
האדמה הזאת היא לא של אבא שלי.
של אבא שלי.
האדמה הזאת...
יש לי ניירות, זה של אבא שלי.
האדמה הזאת זה שלנו, של ארץ ישראל, של יהודים. אתה יודע טוב.
This is the 35th year of a harsh, brutal, and vicious occupation, supported unilaterally by the United States, constant terror and atrocities. Suppose Palestinians say, well, we're under terrorist attack for 35 years, therefore we have a right to carry out suicide bombings.
Which is what they say.
Do you accept this? Does anybody accept it?
Nobody accepts it.
All right, then how come everyone accepts the Israeli claim to be doing it, which is a much weaker claim? Because after all, there's no symmetry in this situation. They are the military occupiers. Palestine isn't occupying Israel. And this isn't just started now. It's gone on years ago. I mean...
So does that, in your mind, justify
no,
the
it does not.
bomb?
Of course not. It doesn't in anybody's
So it
mind.
invalidates both sides.
Those who defend suicide bombing, and there are very few, don't have a leg to stand on. Those who defend the Israeli atrocities, including the U.S. government, most intellectual opinion, a good bit of the West generally, yeah, they don't have a leg to stand on either, and they have a much weaker position. For 35 years, there has been a harsh, brutal, miserable military occupation. There has not been a political settlement. The reason why there has not been a political settlement is that the United States unilaterally has blocked it for 25 years. Is it supported by the entire world, including the majority of the American people? The answer to that question is yes. There is a political settlement that has been supported by virtually the entire world, including the Arab states, the PLO, Europe, Eastern Europe, Canada.
Didn't Barack put that on the table?
No, he did not.
He did not.
It is also supported by the majority of the American people. It has just been reiterated by Saudi Arabia. The U.S. has unilaterally blocked it for 25 years. What Barack put on the table, the population doesn't know this because people like the Western media, the media in Canada and the United States don't tell them. Like, you can check and see how often you, for example, or others have reported what I just said. Don't bother checking. The answer is 0. The Barack proposal in Camp David, in the Barack Clinton proposal, in the United States, I didn't check the Canadian media. In the United States, you cannot find a map, which is the most important thing, of course. Check in Canada and see if you can find a map. You go to Israel, you can find a map. If you go to scholarly sources, you can find a map. Here's what you find when you look at a map. You find that this generous, magnanimous proposal provided Israel with a salient east of Jerusalem, including the city of Ma'ale Adumim, which was established primarily by the Labor government in Clinton in order to bisect the West Bank. That salient goes almost to Jericho, breaks the West Bank into 2 cantons. Then there's a second salient to the north, going to the Israeli settlement of Ariel, which bisects the northern part into 2 cantons. So we've got 3 cantons in the West Bank, virtually separated. All 3 of them are separated from a small area of East Jerusalem, which is the center of Palestinian commercial and cultural life and of communication. So you got 4 cantons, all separated from the west, from Gaza, so that's 5 cantons, all surrounded by Israeli settlements, infrastructure development, and so on, which also incidentally guarantee Israel control of the water resources, the reason. Last comment. This does not rise to the level of South Africa 40 years ago, when South Africa established the Bantustans. That's the generous, magnanimous offer. Okay. And there's a good reason why maps weren't shown, because as soon as you look at the map, you see it.
All right. However, that's the characterization of it. But let me just say, Arafat didn't even bother putting a counter-proposal on the table.
That's not true.
They negotiated at Taba afterwards.
That's not true.
But I guess my question is, if they don't continue to negotiate...
That's totally false. And
that's false?
Not only is it false, but not a single participant in the meetings says it. That's a media fabrication.
That Arafat didn't put a counter-proposal on the table?
They had a proposal. They proposed the international consensus, which has been accepted by the entire world, the Arab states, the PLO, the majority of the American... Sorry, they proposed a settlement which is in accord with an overwhelming international consensus,
my question is, if
and
you
is
don't
blocked by the United States.
The problem that people look at now, the Middle East, is they say it's spun out of control. How do you get back to
First way we
get back?
First way we get back is by trying the experiment of minimal honesty. Okay, let's try that experiment. If we try the experiment of minimal honesty, we look at our own position, and we discover what I just described, that for 25 years, the United States has blocked the political settlement, which is supported by the majority of the American population and by the entire world, except for Israel, virtually. I mean, there's some marginal exceptions. So the first thing we do is accept the honesty to look at that. We take a look at Camp David, and we see, yeah, it was the same. The United States was still demanding a Bantustan-style settlement and rejecting the overwhelming international consensus and the position of the American people. We then discover that the United States immediately moved to enhance terror in the region. So let's continue. On September 29th, Ehud Barak put a massive military presence outside the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Very provocative. When people came out of the mosque, young people started throwing stones. The Israeli army started shooting. Half a dozen people were killed, and it escalated. The next couple of days, there was no Palestinian fire at this time, and it's all in occupied territories. In the next couple of days, Israel used U.S. helicopters. Israel produces no helicopters. Used U.S. helicopters to attack civilian complexes, killing about a dozen people and wounding several dozen. Clinton reacted to that on October 3rd by making the biggest deal in a decade to send Israel new military helicopters, which had just been used for the purpose I described, and of course would continue to be. The U.S. press cooperated with that by refusing to publish the story. To this day, they have not published the fact. It continued. When Bush came in, one of his first acts was to send Israel a new shipment of the most advanced military helicopters in the arsenal. That continues right up to a couple of weeks ago with new shipments. You take a look at the reports from, say, Jenin by British correspondents like Peter Beaumont in the London Observer. He says the worst atrocity there was the Apache helicopters buzzing around, destroying and demolishing everything. Yeah, this is enhancing terror. And we may easily continue. We can take, also, let me continue. On December 14th, the Security Council tried to pass a resolution calling for what everyone recognizes to be the obvious means for reducing terror, namely sending international monitors. That's a way of reducing terror. This happened to be in the middle of a quiet period, which lasted for about 3 weeks. The U.S. vetoed it. 10 days before that, there was a meeting at Geneva of the high contracting parties of the Fourth Geneva Convention, which has unanimously held for 35 years that it applies to Israel. The meeting condemned the Israeli settlements as illegal, condemned a list of atrocities, willful destruction of property, murder, trials, torture, and so on and so forth.
Right, okay.
What happened to that meeting? Oh, I'll tell you what happened to that meeting. The U.S. boycotted it. Therefore, the media refused to publish it. Therefore, no one here knows that the United States once again enhanced terror by refusing to recognize the applicability of conventions which make virtually everything the United States and the Israel are doing there a grave breach of the Geneva Conventions, which means a war crime. Just a minute. These conventions were established in 1949 in order to criminalize the atrocities of the Nazis in occupied territory. They are customary international law. The United States is obligated, as a high contracting party, to prosecute violations of those conventions. That means to prosecute its own leadership for the last 25 years.
I'm sorry, but I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I should like to help everyone if possible. Jew, Gentile, black man, white. We all want to help one another. Human beings are like that. We want to live by each other's happiness, not by each other's misery. We don't want to hate and despise one another. In this world there's room for everyone. The good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate, has goose-stepped us into misery and bloodshed. We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. Our knowledge has made us cynical, our cleverness hard and unkind. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. Without these qualities, life will be violent, and all will be lost. The aeroplane and the radio have brought us closer together. The very nature of these inventions cries out for the goodness in men, cries out for universal brotherhood, for the unity of us all. Even now, my voice is reaching millions throughout the world. Millions of despairing men, women, and little children, victims of a system that makes men torture and imprison innocent people. To those who can hear me, I say, do not despair. The misery that is now upon us is but the passing of greed, the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people. And so long as men die, liberty will never perish. Soldiers, don't give yourselves to brutes, men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, and what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men, machine men with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines, you are not cattle, you are men. You have the love of humanity in your hearts. You don't hate, only the unloved hate, the unloved and the unnatural. Soldiers, don't fight for slavery, fight for liberty. In the 17th chapter of St. Luke it is written, the kingdom of God is within man, not one man nor a group of men, but in all men, in you. You, the people, have the power to create machines, the power to create happiness. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure. Then in the name of democracy, let us use that power. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world, a decent world, that will give men a chance to work, that will give youth a future and old age a security. And the promise of these things, brutes have risen to power, but they lie. They do not fulfill that promise. They never will. Dictators free themselves, but they enslave the people. Now let us fight to fulfill that promise. Let us fight to free the world, to do away with national barriers, to do away with greed, with hate and intolerance. Let us fight for a world of reason, a world where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. Soldiers, in the name of democracy, let us all unite!
Right where you are. Right where you are. Woke up with a weight I can't explain. Tears fall down like quiet rain. Trying to be strong, but I feel so weak. Got 1,000 prayers, I'm scared to speak. Mirror shows me all my doubt. Every fear I try to drown out. But deep inside a voice so small says you're not alone through it all. Even when I lose my way, even when I'm not okay, there's a love that never leaves. hides your way. Right where you are, he stays. Some days I feel too far gone, like I've been running way too long, chasing things that fade away. Still empty at the end of the day, but mercy keeps knocking at my door, like I've never been lost before. No matter how far I roam, something keeps calling me home. Even when I lose control, even when I doubt my soul, when I doubt my soul, there's a peace I can't explain, whispering my name. Right where you are, he meets you there. In every scar, in every prayer, you don't gotta run, don't hide your heart. Love's been with you from the start. When you fall apart, don't be afraid. Grace don't leave. When faith starts to shake in the dark, he lights your way. Right where you are, he stays. For the broken, for the ashamed, for the ones who feel too stained, for the doubters, for the lost, he already paid the cost. You don't gotta earn his love, it's not something you're worthy of, it's a gift you can receive. Just believe, just breathe. Right where you are, you're never too far. Right where you are, he meets you there. Through every pain, through every prayer, you don't gotta run, don't hide your heart. Love's been with you from the start. When you fall apart, don't be afraid. Grace don't leave. When faith starts to shake in the dark, he lights your way. Right where you are, he stays. So come as you are, don't wait to change. His love for you will stay the same through every night into the day. Right where you are, he stays.
So there is therefore now no condemnation to those who are in Christ Jesus. For the law of the Spirit of life in Christ Jesus has set me free from the law of sin and death. For what the law could not do, weak as it was through the flesh, God did, sending his own Son in the likeness of sinful flesh, and for sin, he condemned sin in the flesh, in order that the just requirement of the law might be fulfilled in us who walk not according to the flesh, but according to the Spirit. For those who walk according to the flesh set their minds on the things of the flesh, and those who walk according to the Spirit set their minds on the things of the Spirit. The mind that is set on the flesh is death, and the mind that is set on the Spirit is life and peace. For the mind of the flesh is hostile to God. It doesn't submit to God's law. Indeed, it cannot. And those who are in the flesh cannot please God. But you are not in the flesh. You are in the Spirit, if the Spirit of God really dwells in you. Anyone who does not have the Spirit of Christ does not belong to him. But if Christ is in you, though your bodies are dead because of sin, your spirit is alive because of righteousness. If the one, the Spirit, who raised Jesus from the dead dwells in you, then he who raised Christ Jesus from the dead will give life to your mortal bodies also through the Spirit that dwells in you. So, brothers, we are debtors, but not to the flesh, to live according to the flesh. If you live according to the flesh, you will die. But if by the Spirit you put to death the deeds of the body, you will live. For all who are led by the Spirit of God are the sons of God. He has not given us a spirit of slavery to fall back into fear. He has given us the spirit of sonship by which we cry, Abba, Father. When we do that, the Spirit is bearing witness with our spirit that we are the children of God. And if children, then heirs, heirs of God, and fellow heirs with Christ, if we suffer with Him, in order that we might be glorified with Him. For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing to the glory that will be revealed to us. For the creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the children of God. For the whole creation was subjected to futility, not of its own will, but by the will of Him who subjected it, in hope that the whole creation will be set free from its bondage to decay and obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. For we know that the whole creation has been groaning together like pains of childbirth, and not the creation only, but we ourselves, who have the first fruits of the Holy Spirit, even we also groan, waiting our adoption as sons, the redemption of our bodies. In that hope, we were saved. And who hopes for what he sees? But if you hope for what you do not see, you wait for it with patience. Likewise, the Spirit helps us in our weakness, because we don't know how to pray as we ought. But the Spirit intercedes for us with groanings too deep for words, and He who searches the heart knows what is the mind of the Spirit, because the Spirit intercedes for the saints according to the will of God. For we know all things work together for good, for those who love God and are called according to His purpose. For those whom He foreknew, He predestined to be conformed to the image of His Son, in order that He might be the firstborn among many brethren. And those whom He predestined, He called. And those whom He called, He justified. And those whom He justified, He glorified. What are we going to say to these things? If God is for us, who can be against us? He who did not spare His own Son, but gave Him up for us all, how shall He not freely with Him give us all things? Who's going to bring any charge against God's elect? It is God who justifies. Who's going to condemn? It is Christ Jesus who died, who was raised from the dead, yes, who is at the right hand of God interceding for us. Who will separate us from the love of Christ? Shall tribulation or distress or persecution or famine or nakedness or peril or sword? As it is written, we are being killed all day long. We are carried as sheep to slaughter. No. In all these things, we are more than conquerors through Him who loved us. For I am sure that neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor things present, nor things to come, nor height, nor depth, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God in Christ Jesus our Lord.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Of course, if you want to support the show, you can do so by going to www.patreon.com and getting a membership for as little as $3 a month. Again, that's www.patreon.com/The Jerome McClain Show. The Jerome McClain Show is fully listener-supported, independent media that won't lead you to tribalism. Get a membership and support independent media at www.patreon.com/The Jerome McClain Show.